Coaching is a highly regarded methodology for developing and growing other people, and it's been around for some time, so it's now in a very mature state. I want to use John Vervaeke's 4 ways of knowing model to explain the opportunity and the benefit and even the process through which we acquire competency and capability in coaching, and in fact in any process. And the more I see this model, the more I think about it, the more I listen to John Vervaeke, as difficult as that might be, on occasions, he does go very deep, the more I see the value of this. Now, John Vervaeke is an assistant professor of psychology and cognitive science at Toronto University, and he has a YouTube channel that is worth listening to and watching. It does take some time and some processing, but the value is certainly there. And this model of the 4 ways of knowing is one that starts to describe where managers and leaders differentiate each other. It describes processes and philosophies of schooling even. It's a model I encourage you to become familiar with and make sense of in your own way. First of all, we have this propositional knowing. Something is. This animal is a seal. This elephant is a mammal, that sort of stuff. That's propositional, the what of knowing stuff, if that makes sense. And that's an important stage of development. The next stage of engaging in that domain of learning is around the how, the process of doing whatever it is. In mathematics, it might be the process of differentiation. And this is the way we start, this is the way we finish. In metacognition, it might be the process of learning. And I call that how one because propositional and procedural knowledge are effectively where a lot of content and curriculum biased methodologies in teaching and learning start and finish. We don't really take into account the context in which someone is working, and we don't really take into account to any great depth who they are and why they are, if that makes sense. When we get into perspectival knowing, it's taking the what and how one and applying it to situation, to context, the perspective with which I'm seeing this and how it might apply for me in my situation in the current context, if that makes sense. So for me so far, we have content, process and context are the 3 layers, what, how one and how two. When we go really deep in this model, we're at this participatory knowing. We know the who and the why, who I am and why I believe in the things I do, really effectively defining that identity process. So this is the field of identity in many ways. And often in pedagogy, in schools, in the classroom, we don't have time to get into that identity. Who are you? What defines you? What are your values? And how is all of this fitting into the domain of learning that we're currently working through now? Coaching is a methodology that goes deep because it provides access to all 4 layers of knowing in this model. And we'll explore and use this frame of reference to sort of see where we are in that roadmap of engagement in coaching methodologies. Now, if I was to take this to another layer and add 3 dimensions of each of these, we end up with the me knowing myself. What do I know? How do I know it? What is the situation in which that I know this? And how well does that define who I am and what I stand for as my big whys? And we have a lot of ways in which we try and go deep on this. You know, the retreats, the meditation, a lot of these well-being practices, the discovery of self that in our modern world we seem to dismiss as being trivial, actually allows us to go through this cycle of what, how, one, how to, and how and who and why, backwards and forwards. What I'm saying there, you might notice now, if I move out of the way a little bit, there's an arrow in both directions now. So this is not just a one-way process. And as I build up a body of knowledge in a domain, I'm continuously cycling up and down through these layers as I acquire a new what or a new how one, and how does that integrate to what I do, and how does that change who I am and why I am, are the aspects of this sort of up and down dance we've got through this model. So that self-awareness, self-understanding that moves into the field of self-management is really defined by my own personal journey through these 4 layers. Schooling should be doing this. It should be taking kids through these different layers back up and down as we acquire new parts of our content base and integrate that into who we are and why we are. Now, this also becomes important in the others dimension. And this is the dimension that drives empathy, trust, respect, engagement, motivation. Because when others know what I do and how I'm doing it, in other words, how I'm doing it at a procedural level, and then how that affects my situation, and then how that impacts on who I am and what I stand for, the why for me, then when I know others know this, I know that they know, then my sense is that I'm known, I'm connected, I'm understood, I'm accepted, and these are all powerful mechanisms for the social leaning in, social buy-in, if you like. And in these situations where those dimensions are strong, then as a student, I'll do more for the teacher than I'll do for myself. I'll do more for a boss than I'll do for myself because I know they know me at many levels. It's something that may not be obvious in a cognitive sense, but I am very much aware if I'm known to very deep levels by others around me. This also becomes very important in personal relationships. And if you think about marriages and long-term relationships like this, then where they start to fall over sometimes is where that situation arises where I thought you knew me and now I discover that you don't know me. That's a very big chasm of a moment, if you like, that often causes relationships to fail. That assumption that we make that my partner, my wife, my husband, my father, my mother, my child even knows me and understands me, accepts me, and I discover that that's not the case. And so this is one thing that further illustrates the need to be known at many levels, not just one, not just the who and why, but that continual cycle of knowing from others. And then we've got the integration of knowing domains of work, and knowing the domains of work in the sense of the subject matter, the content, the processes involved in using that content, the situations and the contexts and the perspectives in which that becomes important and useful, discrimination of that to be able to be used in the right time, in the right place, and then how that changes who I am and why I am becomes very important. So the evolution of a teacher often is the result of these 4 layers where over time your values as a teacher is defined, your values are defined, and that you understand your why and who you are and how you can acquire new aspects or even new domains into that complex picture of who you are as a professional with the body of knowledge you've got. Moving from knowledge to wisdom often comes at that bottom participatory knowing. And when we integrate these 3 domains, the me domain, the others domain, and the knowledge domain, if you like, I'm using the word domain too much, but that sort of body of knowledge, then we use this model, the 4 ways of knowing, inherently and often unconsciously. And when we can combine my content knowledge through to wisdom with others and with me, then we're in a very dynamic and often very happy place. This is where people make a big difference. When they know who they are, they know that others know who they are, and they know what they know and why this is important to them as a person. Why all of this exploration? Coaching is one of the best methodologies to take people up and down through this. So from a personal point of view, when my cognition, my thinking, my feeling, my emotions are integrated and managed through these 4 layers, through the methodology of coaching and the presence and skill of someone else to do that with me, then I become way more self-aware and I integrate these 4 levels of knowledge in a really powerful way. What also happens is that when someone does that for me as a coach, my feeling is that they know me, they accept me, there's unconditionality, that I respect them, that I connect and engage with them. They can challenge me in my blind spots and blocks, the bridges that need to be crossed between each of these 4 areas. And that creates this beautiful, what I call cognitive intimacy dynamic, where there's a sense of deep professional love for the person who can do this for me. Again, if this is a leader, then I'm triggering all sorts of other benefits of trust and engagement and motivation and leaning into doing things I wouldn't normally do. So coaching drives 2 of these key dynamics quite clearly, and it also helps us make sense of, increase our domain knowledge, our subject matter knowledge, our ability to be an expert and be wise in our subject matter choice in life. And so coaching hits all of these 3 domains and hits all of the 4 ways of knowing. And it's something that I continually return to now that I've learnt the craft of, and I enjoy it tremendously for the gift that it gives people in this situation. So explore this coaching piece. We'll talk more about some other whys about coaching, but hopefully this model starts to position some different ways of knowing and some different domains in which these 4 ways of knowing apply and how they should integrate together, and how this can fast track development in a very exciting and effective way. I'd love to know what insight has triggered for you. I hope that this has been of some help and interest for you.